Okay. Good afternoon. We are presenting Bbva final project. Our team is made up of 5 members: Sebastián Larragain, Carlo Pérez, Rafael Aguilar, Abraham Chalón, and Ociel Fontecha. The 5 of us are studying business administration. We are in our last semester, and we're going to go through 3 topics. The first one is the background, a little bit about the company and its financials and how it's structured. The second one are the dilemmas about the stakeholders. We are touching on 4 dilemmas. And finally, we're touching on the 4 solutions, one for each dilemma, and the conclusion about what we see for the project and the company's future.
Well, the backgrounds of Bank Bbva, the history of this bank is a history of many people who, since the mid-19th century, have been part of more than 100 financial entities that have come together to expand their business projects. At these days, at Bbva, we work for a better future for people, seeking lasting relationships with our clients that change the way they see business. As a result of this work, Bbva has become a world benchmark and one of the most recognized and awarded banks. The history of Bbva begins in the 1857 in Bilbao, Spain, in a city located in the north of the country when the Board of Trade promoted the creation of Bilbao Bank as an issue and a discount bank. It was a pioneering initiative driven by a contest of economic growth in the region. Until the last decade of the 19th century, this entity performed almost alone in the square.
Bbva has more than 160 years of history. Some of the history are: in 1995, it called Banco Continental in Peru and Probusa in Mexico. In 1997, they become Banco Provincial in Venezuela and BC Argentino in Argentina. In 2000, it became Bancomer in Mexico. Then, in 2005, it became Ganahorrar in Colombia and Hipotecaria Nacional in Mexico. Then it started to grow to Asia, and it became ampliación del acuerdo con CIT in China. In 2012, it became in Spain Unim Bank. Then in 2015, in China, it changed their name to Venta a CNBC, participación en CIFH in China. During the second half of 19th century, Bilbao Bank financial important structure and steel development projects. In 1987, it lost the power to issue its own bank codes and recognized itself as a bank for loans and discounts. The Vizcaya Bank was founded in 1901 and carried out its first operation in Bilbao and gradually spread through the country. In addition to this activity as a commercial and deposit bank, it is involved in the creation and development of a good part of Spain industry. In 1907, Postal Box was created a public law entity and began to provide service in 1916 with the insurance and administration of saving banks. And consortium of bankers and industries consulted Credit Bank Industrial in 1920 with the explicit purpose of promoting through growing of long-term credits. In 1923, the National Agricultural credit service was created under the Ministry of Agriculture, which grants loans to agricultural and livestock association with the joint and several responsibilities of their associates.
BBVA nowadays has presence in various countries around the world. In America del Sur, they are positioned in Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Peru, Uruguay, and Venezuela. In North America, they are positioned in the United States and Mexico. In Europe, they have positions in Germany, Belgium, Chipre, Spain, Finland, France, the Netherlands, Italy, Malta, Portugal, the United Kingdom, Romania, Switzerland, and Turkey. And finally, in the Asia Pacific area, they have banks in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, and Singapore. They have a total of 736 million in assets, 80.7 million clients around the world, more than 30 countries around the world with operations by BBVA. They have 7,432 offices around these countries, 31,000 ATMs and cashiers, and they employ 123,174 employees around the world. In this economic development environment during the 60s, Bilbao Bank increased its size by integrating other banks and began to create a financial group. Meanwhile, Vizcaya Bank continued its growth. It consolidated itself as a modern universal bank and is now becoming an important financial group. In the 1980s, Bilbao Bank based its strategy on reaching a greater dimension that allowed its access to financial businesses that arose from tech advances, deregulation, securitization, and the interrelation of national and international markets. Integration in Argentina in a merger project in 1999 with the aim of creating value. It is the largest financial institution in Mexico, and as we said earlier, has leading franchises in South America and the Sun Belt region in the United States. Its purpose is to make available to all the opportunities of this new era.
Well, the strategy. First of all, the first strategy is improve the financial health of our clients. This one is to help our clients through personalized advice in decision-making and in managing their finances so they can achieve their vital and business objectives. The second one is to assist our clients in the transition to a sustainable future. Gradually align our activity to the Paris Agreement and use our role to assist our clients in the transition to a more sustainable future inspired by selected sustainable development goals. The third one is to grow in customers. Accelerate profitable growth by positioning ourselves where our clients are relying on our own digital channels and those of our third parties. Four, seek operational excellence. Provide the best customer experience with simple and automated process and maintaining our focus on robust risk management and optimal capital allocation. Five, the best of most committed team, a device of empowerment team guided by our proposed values and behaviors and driven by a talent development model that provides growth opportunities for all. Six, data and technology, advanced data analytics compatibles along with secure and reliable technology, enable us to create high quality differential solutions and deliver on our strategy. Our values. The customer comes first. BBVA has always focused on our customers, but now it comes first, putting in before everything else. You have a holistic view of our client, not just financials. This means working with empathy, agility, and integrity, among other things. We are empathic. We incorporate the client's point of view from the first moment, putting ourselves in their shoes to better understand their needs. We are integrity. Everything we do is legal, publishable, and morally acceptable to the society. We always put the client's interest first, and then we solve your needs. We are fast, agility, and executive in solving the problems and needs of our clients, overcoming the difficulties that we encounter. We think big. It is not just about innovating, but about having a significant impact on people's lives, increasing their opportunities. We are ambitious. We set ourselves ambitious and aspirational challenges have a real impact on our lives and clients. We are one team. People are the most important thing in the group. All employees are owners and co-managers of this project. I am a committed. I am committed to my role and my goals, and I feel empowered and fully responsible of achieving them, working with passion and enthusiasm. I trust to the others. I trust the others from the first moment, and I work with generously, collaborating and breaking silos between areas and hierarchical barriers. I am BBVA. I feel like the owner of BBVA. I take the bank's objectives by my own, do everything in my power to achieve them and make our purpose come true.
The first dilemma is competitors. The methods and the process used in the bank are antiques. No one before used a relevant platform to offer the customers. They introduced mobile banking to facilitate banks' movements to decrease staff in banks. The problem is that Mexican people do not have knowledge or the ability to do these activities from their smartphone. So it's difficult to streamline this process in the market without the help and training of staff towards customers. Employers require a very long training process, also because they receive a low salaries. And BBVA Bancomer have a lot of rotation. This causes that they have to take course for a long time to be transmitted to the client, and therefore professionalism and transmission to the client is not correct. Poor and also the population have deficient level of technology. In addition to all of this, the mobile application come out without prior notice, and customers have to solve problems without even having a guide to the step to follow in the application. As a problem, the bank denies to give you help, generating problems to able to do any movement type.
Well, the second one dilemma is investors. In this one, the bank needs investors so it can have a presence in more countries to expand its market, mostly in Latin America, where they see a huge potential. BBVA is not having the market share that it was expecting. It had to take a lot of investment risk in order to enter developing countries. This invest plan was very risky, but it needed to increase its presence in financial markets of Latin American countries like Mexico and USA. Investors in the banking sector tend to abide more unstable and risky in the developing countries. Investment in developing countries are unusual and risky due to internal politicity of the countries. The political and economic systems of the country are those that establish the type of investment that can attract others in the country. Bbva for 4 years has had problems and difficulties of expansion in countries. Bbva went through a financial and economic crisis due to the crisis of 2010. This crisis affected other countries such as Spain, Greece, and Italy, and a large part of Europe. At that time, Bbva had a decrease in the number of investors for its expansions in other countries because the bank did not present support and continued in financial market, and this its failure in having future clients.
Well, the third dilemma is about the MNC that refers to a firm. In 2004, Bbva Bank employees carried out acts of corruption, offering confidential information of construction projects to the competition. Information was also given on loans and concessions to fraudulent projects. These fraudulent projects with high risk affected approximately 60,000 people in Spain. The atypical financial contracts are a kind of saving products in which clients give financial values or money to the bank, and it compromises to give them back, depending on shares quotation or a market index. This means the saver takes the risk to lose his money. However, these contracts were presented as a non-risk high deposit, but the reality was different. Most of the contracts were placed between seniors who didn't have a risky venture profile. The saving of the clients were associated with the evolution of very risky shares. It is estimated that these clients lost around 50,672 euros. They sold these products under conditions of long-term deposits. Bbva was forced to pay 18,668 euros. In that moment, Bbva captured more than 2.9 million euros from these contracts.
The final dilemma is the market. During June 2020, Fitch Ratings downgraded BBVA's long-term issuer default rating to BBB positive from an A negative. The downgrade came after an important analysis reflecting the increased exposure to less stable and weakening economies like Mexico and the problems that the ongoing pandemic caused during the last year. The reasoning behind this change in ratings, as I said, came due to the relevance of the Mexican subsidiary as a major profit contributor for the group, which represents around 31% of total operating income during 2019, which is about 1/3 of the total operating income of the company, combined with a deteriorating operating environment in its home of Spain. Spain, during the start of the pandemic, was expected to be one of the worst countries and one of the most damaged and affected in Europe from the COVID outbreak. In Mexico, some of the main causes of BBVA's downturn during this time were decreasing interest rates across the whole country and higher credit losses. As a whole, BBVA had a 3.8 impaired loan ratio with a loss allowance coverage of 87% during March 2020, which is better than most of their competition, but is still worse than what they had from last year. As a whole, Fitch downgraded their long-term debt for subordinated preferred, long-term deposits, senior preferred, senior non-preferred, and short-term deposits and senior preferred debt.
The solution of competitors, they made agreements with local governments, with big companies, and also they went to digital market. They are the bank with the most cashier and smart ATMs in Mexico City, making this kind of strategy as digital made a competitive advantage over the other banks. Thanks to this, most of the population has access to the ATMs, becoming the customer's favorite science. They do not cost personal money, referring to the expense of having a cell phone or a computer, and they have the ATMs are literally within research of all populations of different social levels.
Well, in solution of investors, in 2019, Bancomer got merged with Bbva. This means that now the company is not from national capital only. Bbva has presence in more than 30 countries, making an expectation of growth in important Mexican market. This strategy gave position market to both in Mexico City and Latin America. Other solution that at the time were successful for Bbva was unification with local and regional banks. It is a way of entering foreign markets directly and with a greater understanding of the financial structures and systems of developing countries. In Mexico, it merged with Bancomer, which allowed Bbva to enter a growing market with high market positioning, in addition to acquire a good financial system and a functional strategy adapted to the economic situation in Mexico. Another of the solutions that Bbva could have made at the time was enter the Latin American market directly, avoiding mergers with other banks, but with different rates and loans. When entering new market, it will be more difficult to create value and competitive advantage over local and regional banks. He could have created a strategy and financial plan where loans to private and public companies were below the market average to start operationals quickly. In addition, we offer local loans and small companies and a local business to have cash movements and start operations in the shortest time.
Okay, the solution for the third dilemma is they had the option of firing the corrupt people. However, it is hard to find them. One way to solve this problem in the long term is creating a solid culture of permanence, acting with values and work ethic. Another solution is to make a structural analysis on the contracts to be sure that the low risk contracts are low risk actually, and the high risk contracts are high risk. Then it can be presented to the clients and the selection process is going to be more effective with more personal attention. In the long term, to implement a new area in the company that is going to be in charge of the other areas, but specifically in leaked information. This area will have to monitor the others so it could avoid this.
We think in the firm that a structure between departments can reduce misinformation and can reduce risk by having more control of what each contract has. As we saw in the market crash during 2008, bonds and derivatives were sold in the market with a high rating when the deposit and the mortgage payments were high risk. So we think that this structure will reduce that risk and clients will get low risk contracts with low risk investments and high risk contracts with high risk investments. Finally, for the solution in the market, we think that one solution would be first, suspending dividend payments to all investors due to the ongoing pandemic and economic downturn that emerging countries are currently facing. As a second option, to reduce risk and debt acquired through leverage, in case BBVA issued callable bonds, they could exercise this callable amortization and look for cheaper ways to finance future projects by taking advantage of the lower interest rates. For example, if Bbva issued bonds with a 5% yield and interest rates have fallen down to 3.25%, Bbva could buy back these callable bonds and look for financing with lower interest rate, such as 3.25%. This would decrease their debt by 1.75% in this example, and their debt would be reduced by the amount of debt they are issuing. Another route the company could take to face this challenge is to reduce asset risks and problems in countries where their profitability could take the biggest hit. This is not pointing toward a solution in the short term, but focusing on this goal could improve their cost of risk by 100 to 200 basis points throughout the course of the year. Additionally, we think that by focusing on what the market needs in each country, they can reduce high-risk investments such as digitalization in Mexico. They could reduce it and focus on ATM machines as they have done, and gradually increase investment as they see the market evolve.
To sum up, stakeholders are the people to whom we as administrators must direct most of our efforts to improve the company. It should always be a priority to take into account the opinion of these stakeholders, for example, market, clients, investors, the firm, and some others, since they are the ones that interact with the company and those that give it value, since without them, it would not exist the company. BBVA today is one of the leaders in the banking industry in Mexico and other countries. Something important to mention is the adaptation to the environment it had with the pandemic. And for some time, this by adapting information technologies to an industry that does not transform for a long time.
Well, as Abraham just said, stakeholders are the most important parts of a company's future and the company's se me fue la palabra, la verga. Well, as Abraham just said, the stakeholders are the most important part of a company for its future and its survival. During the pandemic of 2020, we saw a growth in digital transformation that we have never seen before. We think that BBVA is a great company since they invest in the long term rather than the short term. We have seen throughout the years and throughout the history in the markets that those companies that invest in the short term to satisfy investors' needs and pay dividends gradually start paying and gradually fail in the long term when they don't invest in the future technologies. We think that with the deflation that was shown in the job administration report by the US government last Friday, we think that this deflation will be good for technologies and for disruptive tech by making costs cheaper for production and making digitalization much more closer than we were last year. For example, the cost of batteries in electric vehicles, the cost of artificial intelligence in computer and science, the declining cost of energy as oil, and the declining cost of financial transactions, just as JP Morgan or S&P. We think that BBVA is focusing on digitalization, which is very important, and markets such as Mexico or Turkey, may adopt it later throughout the years. But as we've seen in the US market with Venmo and Cash App, we think that the Mexican people will adopt this in the coming years. And this is one of the solutions that will bring BBVA forward and face it as the first competitor in the financial markets.
Well, although BBVA in the last 5 years has a rate expansion in developing countries and has helped into increasing clients and partners, this part is important to start extending his operations and system control in many countries. It has positioned itself within in the last 3 years, ensuring banks and benchmark for its operations and system in developing markets.
Thanks to ATMs, today we have the easy to use them without using apps. Not everyone knows how to use the apps. For example, elderly people who has never had smartphones. For these people, it's easier to use ATMs than apps. Even through these ATMs are apps inside a computer, you do not need to have a phone to use them, and that's what makes easier and sometimes more accessible for people who not have access to the technology or internet. Well, that was it. I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. Remember that if you have any question, you can ask us.